Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hello. Thank you for being here with Partnerships for Profit. I'm joined by James Usera. He is a personal injury attorney and the founding member of Usera Snow. James, appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
So why don't you give me a quick intro about who you are and how you started as a personal injury attorney?
Sure. So, funny enough, I'm actually one of those fortunate people who, when I was about 12 years old, was asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. So I was on that trajectory from my early teens. Obviously finished high school, went to college in southern Utah, got a degree in criminal justice and matriculated to law school from there. And so it was something I always wanted to do, always had an interest in it. Thought I might have an aptitude for it, but to be perfectly honest, had no idea what practicing law was all about or what I wanted to get into in terms of a specialty. I was fortunate enough to get a job while I was in law school with a small firm here in Salem, Oregon. And they liked me, I liked them, kind of learned the biz, and they offered me a job coming out of law school. And so I worked for that firm for about 17 years. Those partners were getting up there and decided to all hang it up and retire. And that was in late 2022 that my partner, Randy Snow, and I decided to go out on our own and start up our own operation. So we've been in business now for about 2.5 years. And I'm pleased to report that things are going about as well as they could be.
Nice. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch it, but the firm that you were with was also personal injury primarily?
Primarily. So they did, when I started there, we did mostly actually insurance defense. So we were on the defense side of personal injury, civil litigation stuff. So that's how I kind of learned the ropes and learned the system and learned how to practice law. They also did a little bit of criminal defense. My partner, Randy, does criminal defense primarily. So there was a smattering of different things going on at that firm. Over time, I focused more on the plaintiff personal injury side. But still to this day, continue to do some defense work as well. So I'm kind of in a unique situation with my practice where I'm almost 50-50 plaintiff and defense work. So it gives me a bit of a unique perspective on the overall system, how insurance carriers operate, what kinds of things are going to be effective in front of a jury, both from a plaintiff side and a defense side.
Yeah, that's awesome. That does sound like a really good differentiator. How do you communicate that to potential clients and other attorneys that this is what sets you apart?
Yeah. So professionally, the attorneys on the plaintiff side know me as a defense attorney, and attorneys on the defense side know me as a plaintiff's attorney. And it's a relatively small community in Oregon. So we're encountering the same lawyers all the time. And so I have attorneys, for example, 2 cases, same attorney. He and I were co-defendants in a case that we tried a case last month. And within a week, I had a plaintiff case and he was the defense attorney on it. So it's one of those things where we just, the community is small enough. We all run across the same lawyers over and over and over again. So we all get a sense of who does what and what areas of practice we tend to focus on. So that part kind of takes care of itself. In terms of clients, I just have an upfront conversation with them right out of the gate and tell them, look, especially when there are questions about how do we deal with this issue in the case, or what's my case worth, or something like that. I feel like I have that unique ability, or it's not totally unique, but a relatively unusual ability to sit down with the client and say, listen, I've been working for insurance companies for 20 years. I can tell you how they're looking at this. Mm-hmm. So it gives me the ability to explore the defense perspective on a case a little bit more than perhaps some other lawyers. So I try to make that clear to my clients, if not in our initial consultations, certainly throughout the case. So they understand that, I've got that perspective and hopefully provide some insight as to strengths and relative weaknesses of any given case.
Yeah, some maybe positioned as maybe a little bit of insider knowledge, like hey, let's go this direction. This is going to play maybe better.
Sure. Yeah,
Case.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's knowing where the pressure points are on the plaintiff side, where are the pressure points for this insurance company that we can really add value for the client, right? And then on the defense side, of course, it's sort of the same thing, right? I can talk to the insurance carriers and go, look, these are where the pressure points are that a jury's going to really, respond favorably to this side of the case. So it provides me a bit of an advantage. And I'm not unique. I don't want to overstate it. I'm not totally unique. I mean, I've actually said a number of times to colleagues that, the best plaintiffs attorneys are the guys who started out doing insurance defense. And I know a lot of them who eventually make the transition where they've done civil litigation for years. And once you know how the system works, one of my mentors used to say, the great equalizer is knowing the rules. And so if you know the rules, and you know the law, you can do both sides of the case. Mm. But it's the behind the scenes stuff that what insurance companies worry about. And so those guys who have had a little bit of insight to doing the defense work seem to have, in my view, a bit better perspective about what carriers are going to respond to in terms of settlement negotiations, or if we have to, employ trial tactics.
Okay. You said that you and your partner began in 2022, so you're about over 3 years, or just about 3 years at this point?
Yeah, about 2.5. So okay. We were November 1st of 2022 was our official first day of practicing on our own. So
how's it been learning how to run and operate your own business effectively? How's that been?
I'll tell you, it is, you don't know what you don't know. I worked for a relatively small firm and thought I had a pretty good idea of how things operated. And it's not that anything has been colossally difficult or has presented any kind of meaningful obstacle, but there are just small hassles and little things that you have to worry about as the owner of the business that when you're just an employee practicing law, you just don't even think about it or consider. And so, an example is we only have one employee and we're happy with that. Uh-huh. She's terrific. But one of the things that we want to do is set up a 401k plan.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I don't know how to set up a 401k plan. How do you do that? Right. And so figuring that kind of stuff out, figuring out payroll stuff, figuring out, make sure we pay our taxes on time. And then we've got a CPA looking at that kind of thing. So there are all those added elements to running a business that go above and beyond just simply practicing law that, again, while not tremendous barriers to entry, are nevertheless, minor hassles that you just have to, you have to price into what you're doing. So
do you feel like you and your partner are really good fits for one another as far as not just personality, but business operators? Is how y'all are able to, how does that partnership work?
100%. And so if I was going to give advice to anybody about starting a partnership or a business, my advice would be find Randy Snow or your version of a Randy Snow. And I say that to mean get somebody who you see eye to eye with, who you can communicate effectively with, and who has the same overall approach and agenda or, longer term goals that you do. And so one of the things that I think can get frustrating is when you get into, business relationships, whether it's practicing law or anything else, where you've got, one or two or three partners who either don't communicate effectively or have different ideas about where the business is going. And so one of the things I think Randy and I have done really well is from the outset, we sat down and kind of defined what our goals are, right? We just made the decision right out of the gate. We don't want to get too big. We're very happy with the amount of work and the size of the firm, the number of clients we have, the quality of the clients we have. We know what our expectations are in terms of maintaining a work-life balance. So neither one of us want to be working 80 hours a week. We want to actually have some time with our families and so forth. And so we have communicated effectively, and we've both been able to sit down and just say, look, here's what I want. Here's where I want this to go and what I want to see out of this project. And having those discussions has gone a long way towards smoothing that process over so that it's efficient and we move forward and we're both paddling in the same direction, so to speak. And the other thing I think we've done well that seems to be working for us is we revisit that every 6 months or so, maybe once a year at least, where we kind of have, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, but just have a sit down and say, how are things going on your side of the business? How are things going on my side of the business? Do we want to change anything? Are there areas that we want to, pull back in terms of spending? Do we want to spend more on advertising? Those kinds of conversations. But it's just a function of keeping that conversation going and being able to, almost literally just poke your head in the door and go, hey, is everything still going the way we want it? And, we've been able to have effective conversations and again, communicate and make those strategic decisions that are going to be advantageous to us for the long haul. So that's, and I'm kind of rambling, but that's the thing that I think, if there's anything I think we've really done right, that is what I would say it is. Nothing goes perfectly, but that ability to, number one, outline our agenda from the get-go, make sure we're on the same page, and to keep revisiting that conversation, and just having that ability to speak and communicate effectively has been just really a godsend for us.
So having, just to recap there, like having, when choosing a business partner, or in this case, a firm partner, having high level overview, being very in line and on the same page and going the same direction, but having different strengths. So some overlap, others not. That's where the harmony comes in.
Yeah, I think so. And, everybody brings a different skill set and different aptitude to the table, right? There are things, Randy is terrific at certain aspects of the operation. And I would say I excel at other aspects of the operation. I can be insufferable in a lot of ways, but part of that is because I stay on top of stuff and I want to get stuff done in a timely way. And that's one of the things I think we're both good at is, serving our clients well and providing that level of customer service and responsiveness that clients expect from us. But in terms of managing the business, it's the same thing. If there's something that I think is important to get dealt with, I have no problem going and talking to Randy, and he's like, great, do it, man, take the lead and run with it. Other sides, there are other components of the business, just from an operations standpoint, that, Randy feels are important. Either it's that he feels it's more important than I do, or primarily he just has an aptitude for dealing with it. Or sometimes it's just a function of he's got a relationship with a vendor, for example, that he can get us a deal on something like, this is a trivial example, but something like we were getting new signs for outside the building. Mm-hmm. He's friends with an owner of a sign shop here in town, so he could take that and he knows right where to go and how to deal with it and get it done really effectively. So having those, recognizing, I think, the different skill set or the different aptitudes that we all bring to the table, and then allowing that to complement one another, right? Mm-hmm. There's no reason to make things more difficult than they need to be. There are enough hassles in life as it is. And if you've got, if one partner has, again, a particular skill set or aptitude for one aspect of operations, then let that person run with it. Mm-hmm. And trusting one another that we're going to do it in our best interest and the best interest of the overall operation is tremendous as well. Like, I don't have to question Randy about what he's doing because I trust him implicitly that he's going to make decisions that are good for both of us. And I would suspect vice versa.
Yeah. That's awesome. I've been personally studying a lot of like what these relationships, like how to be very intentional with business relationships and leaning into one another's strengths. So I'm right there with you, jiving with that.
Well, yeah. And, I'm sure you've heard some from like Scott Galloway, who is, I think, a terrific resource for, entrepreneurship and any number of aspects, but he talks about having the kitchen cabinet. And I think that kitchen cabinet idea applies to any business, whether it's a law firm or a medical practice or anything in between. It's having those people around you that you trust. They're going to call you on your BS when they need to. And also who you can just bounce ideas off of. And again, a lot of it comes down to, this is a little repetitive, but it's the idea of being able to communicate effectively with one another and come up with, strategic solutions to, the problems that we're always going to encounter in business. So, That I think really is the magic to getting a successful operation off the ground.
Yeah, that's great. So you'd mentioned a couple things that segue well into this, but other than a really good and intentional successful partnership, you also mentioned your background with working with insurance defense. You said.
Sure. Yeah.
What other than maybe those two things as well, but other than that, like what else do you feel like your firm does exceptionally well at and really does set you apart?
I don't think this is novel, but it took me a few years to figure this out when I started practicing law. And it is that we are a services-based industry. And I mean, I would think about it this way, that, within a half-mile or mile radius of my office, I know at least a dozen very competent lawyers around here. The thing that Randy and I try to focus on is customer service. And it sounds trivial in a lot of ways, but if there's something that I hear from, potential clients where they're, periodically we get calls from folks who say, I've got a lawyer, but I don't feel like the person's doing very well for me, or I'm not satisfied with the level of service. And it really comes down to customer service type stuff, right? Where it's, return phone calls, respond to emails in a timely way, deal with your clients personally, as opposed to, one of the complaints I hear from folks periodically is, I hired this lawyer, I never heard from him. I only talked to his assistant. And so we've really tried to focus on recognizing that this is fundamentally a services industry. We're here to provide a service to our clients. We want to do the best legal job we can, but part of our job is to, forgive the expression, but hold the client's hand and walk them through the process and make sure they understand what's going on. And I think the more and more people, and I think this applies to almost any business, right? It's like the more and more you understand who you're there to serve, right? None of us are in business for ourselves. We're all there to serve somebody else, and hopefully we can make a profit from it. There's nothing wrong with making money. That's the whole goal here. But once you recognize who it is you're there to serve and who your client is, and then taking steps and making sure that you're doing your job in a way that your client feels like he or she is getting his or her dollars worth of service from you, I think that goes light years toward, generating additional referrals and repeat clients and that sort of thing. So, I was recently not complaining, but making the comment that I've just been really busy lately, busier than I kind of expected to be. And the person I was talking to said, well, the reason you're getting a lot of work is because people like you. And whether they actually like me or don't like me, I think that what they're responding to is that level of customer service that I really do try to provide, right? And whether it's an insurance company client or an individual client, the fact that I'm responsive, the fact that I return phone calls in a timely way, and that I deal with things promptly, I really do think, makes a huge difference in terms of people going, even if they don't think I'm the best lawyer in the world, they know I'm going to deal with whatever the project is, and I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. So I think that customer service aspect, and again, as trivial as it sounds, it makes all the difference in the world for folks.
It's funny how, like, even in like 2025 and like all of these technological tools and advancements we have, like businesses are still not able to successfully like really make a difference to the customer, to where the customer really does feel taken care of and special. Like that's kind of absurd to me that like it's still not happening, that level of customer service.
Yeah. And it's funny, we've all complained about, calling, pick your business, but making a phone call and you get the phone tree, press one for this and two for that. And how refreshing it is that when you call the professional that you've hired, again, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer or anybody else, CPA, financial planner, that you call that person that you've hired to do a job for you, and you actually get that person on the phone. I really do think it makes a tremendous difference for folks. And again, it's that feeling of, the greatest compliment I ever got practicing law was, you don't seem like a lawyer. This particular client, it wasn't a big deal case. We got it done efficiently for her. And she said, I really appreciated the fact that you listened to what I had to say, you dealt with it in a timely way, and you don't act stuffy or like you're better than me or anything else. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back too much, but it really was a genuine and well-received compliment that treat people like a human being with a little bit of dignity and respect, and just respond to their questions and their inquiries and so forth. And those relationships will continue. And I would hesitate to venture a guess on what a metric or a number might be, but I've gotten a lot of repeat clients and a lot of referrals from folks who, I didn't do anything super special for them. I just handled their matter in an efficient way and dealt with them on a personal level. And, it translates into more business. So,
yeah. How with that same strategy in mind, that like customer service for your clients, how do you approach other attorneys? You said that there in Oregon, it's a very small community, so you run into a lot of the same attorneys. So there's some built-in relationships there. But other than that, how do you approach your potential referral partners as with customer service in mind?
Yeah, so this goes back to your point about technology, and meaning we can all send emails or whatever efficient means of communication. I think there's a lot of time. This is a little off topic, but I'll get back.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of time that we all spend in any profession trying to optimize for efficiency. And it's like, I can't tell you how much time a day I spend just going through emails and making sure my inbox is cleaned out. And I think everybody is suffering from that dilemma. The thing that I've found to be most effective is literally pick up the phone and call people. And it, again, some of this stuff sounds so trivial, but the number of times that I've found myself able to resolve problems or resolve disputes or generate new relationships with attorneys by simply picking up the phone, exchanging some pleasantries, trying to be, personable, ask the person how they're doing. Don't just jump right into arguing the case, that kind of thing. That stuff just goes, I really do think that kind of thing makes all the difference. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all just trying to do our jobs. One of the best pieces of advice I got early on in my career, I was a baby lawyer about a year out of law school, and I had a status conference at the court with a longtime personal injury attorney here in town who was terrific. And he said, look, the thing you're going to figure out is we all need each other. Right. And to this day, I mean, I like to think of myself as being a reasonably competent attorney, but I refer cases to other lawyers all the time when I look at it and go, you know what, I'm not smart enough about that particular issue or whatever it is, that I send it to somebody else. We all need that stuff. Right. I mean, I get referrals from other attorneys on, certain types of cases. And so I think that has been a byproduct of, again, just having those personal relationships. And anybody who listens to podcasts probably hears this in one domain or another, but life is all about relationships, good business relationships, good personal relationships. Again, this is a little bit off topic, but there's that Harvard happiness study that's tracked, people for 50 or 60 years or something like that. And by orders of magnitude, the happiest people are the people with the best relationships. And if you can figure out a way, I think this is my sort of thought about it, is if you can figure out a way to incorporate some level of personal relationship into your business dealings, you're just that much better off for it. And those relationships will continue over time. I mean, as an example, I called an attorney this morning on a case. He and I had a case maybe 10 or 12 years ago. I remembered him. I didn't think he was going to remember me, and I don't think he really did. But as soon as we started talking, we remembered the case that we were on together. And it was like, oh, good to hear from you, blah, blah, blah. And this is somebody I haven't talked to in a decade. And so again, that whole thing of maintaining something like a personality or a personal relationships with folks, it translates and pays dividends well into the future. And so we were able to get, through our conversation and get going on this particular case. And it's I really anticipate it all going very smoothly, even though we're on opposite sides of the case, because we get along just fine and we're able to have, pleasant communication. So, personal relationships, I can't overstate it.
And it sounds like maybe some lucky few people, this stuff kind of comes naturally, but I think for the rest of us, like, it takes intentionality to, like you said, pick up the phone. Something as basic and human as just picking up the phone and having a conversation still takes a level of intentionality. Because I don't think for a lot of people that just comes super naturally, because we're so inundated with all of these responsibilities, and our work feels like it takes precedence over relationships, but that's just not the way the world works, as we talked about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And if I can dump on Gen Z for a second, excuse me, the number of times I've encountered, whether it's younger lawyers or younger clients or just younger folks in general, we all spend so much time on our screens, right? And I mean, boo-hoo, and I don't mean to sound too woo-woo about it, but we all spend so much time on our screens, whether it's scrolling through social media or texting or sending, cryptic, abbreviated emails. The fact is, like, if I was to give advice to younger folks coming up, it really would be learn how to talk on the phone, learn how to have a conversation with people. The number of times I sit down for meetings with folks where I go, they just can't, they have this anxiety about just sitting down and having a conversation, or they have anxiety about picking up the phone. And I don't love talking on the phone either, but it's just part of the world we live in. You got to communicate with people. And again, the number of times I've been able to really move cases forward and add value to my clients by simply having the willingness to, like you say, the intentionality and making it a point to go, I'm going to call that lawyer and I'm going to just have a conversation with him. And maybe we don't agree, and that's cool. Like, we live in a world where we're going to have disagreements, especially within the practice of law.
Yeah.
It's fine to have professional disagreements, but if you can actually have a conversation, you can usually narrow those down to where you can at least keep the case moving along. And again, add value for your client by being efficient in how you're resolving disputes. I mean, at the end of the day, as a lawyer, I view my job as much as anything as an advocate, but also as a problem solver, right? Our job is to solve our client's dispute the best way we can and in the most advantageous way we can for the client. But at the end of the day, it's problem solving. And the best way to solve problems, in my view, is, number one, identify what the problem is or what the dispute is. And then number two, talk about it, figure it out, right? And the more you can do that, the better off you're going to be. And I think that translates across every domain.
For sure.
Whether it's, practicing law or your personal relationship with your spouse or significant other, right?
Yeah.
You got to talk to her. You got to talk to him, right? He's not just going to read your mind. So.
Yeah. And I mean, even in the case like such as this, where the person that you're trying to communicate is on the opposite side of you, representing somebody else that y'all are opposed to, like, by still being intentional with that conversation, you develop a relationship where that person who is opposed to you and does have different views than you, if you're able to have a good enough communication where you do understand one another, like, that still is developing really good relationships to where in the future, like, they, even though they're on opposite sides of the aisle in this case, they still want to work with you because you were just pleasant to talk to and understand.
That's the hope. That's the hope. Yeah. It doesn't always work. You're not going to get along with everybody, but yeah, that certainly is the hope. That certainly.
But if the goal is that it's not, because of you that you're not getting along with, that's probably a better goal to have.
100%.
Cool. Well, yeah, I really appreciated talking with you and of course, learning more about the firm. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts or anything about for any of our viewers? Anything you'd like to leave with your experience?
Sure. I mean, I would just, starting a business is great. I think nothing better than being your own boss. I would say, again, invest in personal relationships. It makes all the difference in the world. I had I had an uncle tell me once that, and I thought it was great advice. He said, nobody achieves success on their own, right? Everybody gets help along the way. Yep. The idea of anybody being self-made is really a farce, right? Yep. The reality is we all get helped out along the way. And so invest in those relationships, take advantage of them. One of my mentors, I mean, I'm just, full of advice other people gave me, but one of my mentors told me, he said, use us to your advantage. That's what we're here for. We're happy to help. And I think you will find that people are happy to help. And so again, I don't mean to be repetitive, or overstate it too much, but invest in and take advantage of those personal relationships. People are happy to help you out. And generally people want to see you succeed. So take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves and invest in those personal relationships, and they will pay dividends long into the future.
That's awesome. Yep. I completely agree. James, really appreciated having you here and sharing some of your background and thoughts. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we will see y'all next time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.